Welcome to the podcast. I'm Eric Salzman, joined by Rich Bennett and Kevin Doherty. How are you, fellas?
Doing
Good.
good.
How are you? Do you,
I'm
do you get
down.
do you get any of that smoke from Canada
No,
where you are?
no.
No?
We're on the Chesapeake Bay, so we haven't gotten any of that yet.
Mm.
But I think my son he's a wildland firefighter, so
Yeah,
he's out in California, and he's been very busy. So I'm wondering if they're going to send him here, because those guys go everywhere. Uh,
right.
but yeah, it's been a very busy season for him so far. But yeah, the big fires up in Ontario. And speaking of big fires, let's get right into it. So what, Richie? Or guys, what's going on? So the Kospi is the Korean, the hottest stock market on the planet that we
Yeah.
talked about months ago. That's basically two stocks, Samsung and SK Hynix. Those guys are starting to implode. And I think, Kevin, you spoke a lot last week about the leverage, or Richie, when you talk about the amount of leverage that is in that index in Korea. And
Right.
I think, Kevin, you had a very interesting statistic the other day as far as margin calls.
Yeah, Rich pointed this out actually. This insane level of I've never seen it in any market, heard about
So
it.
so 3%, right? I don't know. They have a fair amount of people, right? They have like 45
Yeah,
million people. 3% of all adults were margin called the other day in Korea. So that yeah, you might say, oh, 3%. What's that? Yeah. But
yeah,
like not everybody buys stocks over there, right?
right.
Like not everybody can afford to. So like it's just those that are in. So basically, probably, you know, three quarters of the people that are trading
Mhm.
got a margin call on Tuesday or Wednesday because the market is imploding. So what that tells you is it's a lot of retail investors, right? And they're borrowing to buy stocks that just seem to go up and up and up and up. And to preface it, even today, with the downturns today, it was down again today. They were closed yesterday for Constitution Day or whatever in Korea. But the ETF EWY, which I shorted on Tuesday, um,
Nice.
that still trading, and it was down a fair amount this morning, but it's come back a little bit. But even still, with all the crap, I mean, it's the Kospi is still up 62% on the year. 62% on the year. It's July. So it was up 100 or something like yeah. It's down like it's definitely in bear market territory. So like it's down more than 20%. It's off its recent high, 30%. I think it is.
What about now the single stock, like ETFs, leveraged ETFs? Maybe explain a little what those are. But those single stocks are Samsung and SK Hynix and all that. Those have like triple. Is it like triple leverage three times?
Yeah, you can get two times, three times. So what you're doing is you're making a play like the stock itself is not enough for you. So you need extra juice, right? You need like a lot of leverage. So what happens is every day let's say you have a three times bullish call on the Samsung or SK Hynix,
ETF, right?
the ETF is three times that leverage. So theoretically, it will move three times the amount of the underlying stock for that day, right? But people get excited on that, and rightly so. And when it's going up, it must be wonderful, right? Like if you're long to the hill, three times leveraged SK Hynix, and it's up 200%, you're close to 600%. That may be for another time that we talk, just dissect that, but that's the basic idea. So a lot of these retail people are not only going along these stocks, they're going along the stock three times, the value of the underlying stock three times.
Because they couldn't get enough. They couldn't get
And,
enough.
and I think there's options on these three times leverage things. Some companies won't even allow that. Like I think Schwab, they say no, you can't, because that's like steroids. That's
And
like
as Robin Hood says, "Come on in,
yeah,
come
Robin
on,
Hood's like yeah, we got that, we got
you got
that
that."
money. Oh, you don't? We can let you borrow some.
Right. You got money? Now, we've talked about this a number of times. We talk about things going up like an escalator and going down like an elevator, the express elevator. Well, something to consider, and I know now that I think they have to show you what happens to these leveraged ETFs when you get a lot of volatility. and what could happen. Real simple. So if you have a two-time bullish ETF, let's say on Samsung or Micro, any of the chip makers, or anybody in general, anything. Every day that ETF needs, when it starts trading, needs to have double the exposure of the underlying stock, right? So what happens when the stock goes up from 5 to 7, goes up? Great. Now, the next morning, they have to have enough underlying to once again do double of what it did from the day before. So it went from 5 to 7. Now they have to what's called rebalancing. Every night they rebalance, and now they have more. They have more underlying because they need that to basically replicate 2 times. Which is when things are going up, it's fantastic, right? Because you keep getting longer as this thing goes up. Just awesome. However, when they go down, like we've seen the last few days, you're done. Because now to rebalance, they need a lot less. So the ETFs is selling to rebalance the next day. So, right. So if you go down 20%, you might as well just throw it in the garbage because you're never coming back. And now I know in the United States, and I think we very early, one of our first podcasts, we did talk about that in Korea, which is really, I had never thought about this until I was thinking about this example. I remember in Korea, they made you take a test. You had to do something to prove to them that you knew what you were doing before they would let you trade these. Well, I don't know how hard the test was.
Well, and they just a few months ago approved these single stock leveraged ETFs.
Right.
So you could get index or market ETFs, but they said, yeah, why not? So SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics, those two account for over half the volume of these levered ETFs. And yesterday, the financial regulator in Korea said that was a mistake to approve these, and I should have fought harder to stop them because it's exacerbating the losses for these retail holders.
And now he's trying to push through, which tells you a lot. He's trying to push through many things to regulate things. One of which I saw was the minimum trade, $20,000. So he's trying to can all the retail guys that are in there for $100 to take their friends out to dinner at the end of the day because they've won at the casino. The other thing about this is they raised rates. Like that's not even like really been talked about, but like
No.
South Korea, the central bank raised rates on Tuesday or Wednesday, right? And said, this is getting out of hand, folks. And we're gonna put the fire out.
Oh, so that means that they're increasing the price of the leverage to make is that right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That'll help. I mean,
it is crazy. You look at these charts. So all of this stuff that is crashing over the last month, and it's not just, it's the chip makers, it's the memory stuff, it's the associated trades, Caterpillar, the nuclear company, all this stuff that had been way up. You look at the 3-month chart, they're all still up. They're all showing gains on the 3-month, but the 1 month is a total bloodbath, down, from 15 to 40% in these names. So it just shows the insane increase before that. And so it begs the question, is this a very painful bull market correction, or was that the blow off top?
And there was a comment from Goldman Sachs, that said that tracking institutional investors, and we know who those guys are, it's the lowest exposure in, I guess they do this weekly review or whatever survey, but I think it's the lowest exposure to all AI products and shoot-offs, anything AI related, in like 6 months. So the smarter guys, right, if you want to call the institutional guys smarter, they usually are, they've made their dough basically, and now they're, on the sidelines. But Goldman, of course, being ever bullish, said they don't know where the money has gone yet, but they don't think it's cash. So like maybe there is some shift, which everybody wants, right? They want people to buy because the banks have done very well. right? Most of them.
Sure.
Um,
They had great earnings so far.
yeah. I mean, JP Morgan made more money than any bank in the history of Earth in the last quarter.
So does that potentially encourage you guys that it's the institutionals are not uh, well,
Divesting. Yeah.
yeah, they're not forced sellers here.
No. Yeah.
And
I
so
think
like
that,
they were in 2008 or
right.
1999. So
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's a good thing, at least for a little bit. Right.
But
Like,
retail's gotten so much bigger since 2008, right? That's
right.
yeah,
the
that's a good
flip
point.
side is, I mean, I've seen right now, and you can get them Jeffries. I don't know if Goldman, but there are these single name notes, leverage structured notes where you're getting basically what you're doing is you're selling a put option on that stock, and like there are these buffer notes that as long as you don't go down more than 50%, you're cool. You're not losing any money. And you're getting this big rate. You're getting this big coupon payment. Well, the reason you're getting the big coupon payment is you're selling a ton of volatility because if you go down, just break a little bit through 50, now you're down 50, now you're down 50%. So it's a big, gigantic barrier option. And I know that is being really pushed on kind of high net worth retail. And I had someone show that to me a few weeks ago, and I just said, I talked to the guy who's doing it, like the guy who's basically pushing it, and I go, dude, like 50%. I mean, that could happen in a week with some of these guys. No, don't worry about it. Because by the way, if even if it goes down, I'm paying you 33%. It's like, it's a free lunch. You can't
Maybe
lose.
you
Okay.
should you should send him a link to that Korean volatility training seminar.
Wait, didn't somebody get Richie or who somebody point up that didn't somebody get stabbed in Korea for
Yeah.
like recommending?
Yeah, it was a Korean. We got to be careful on our podcast now. It was a Korean YouTube podcaster who recommended some trade, probably, hey, go long SK Hynix or something, right? And some deranged investor found out where the guy lived and stabbed him, like outside of his apartment. Like, that's bad.
Well, in our defense, we've pretty much been right the last few months.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't think we're getting carried out anytime
right,
soon.
not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of things to talk about, and this is another theme we've had. And don't worry, we'll be wrong someday soon. We really are taking some victory laps, and I generally get things wrong. But it's all related, and like now, all you're seeing is like the momentum trade is crashing. The chip momentum trade is crashing. In fact, they coined it a momentum crash, and you're getting article after article after article coming out about the AI trade now. And now all of a sudden, everyone is like, hey, how, like today, one of the reasons the market's getting clobbered is there's a new deep sea coming out of China. And I think it's called Moonshot. And this is another low cost, but very good quality chatbot or large language model that again can do probably 95% of the best frontier models that our guys are like Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini, or I think Gemini, but Google's or Alphabet's. But like, okay, you're seeing again and again, you guys have brought this up. We've brought this up a lot about the moat, right? There is no moat. There's so many bright software engineers, hardware engineers out there who can replicate things, would make things better for cheaper, and they don't have to hire 50,000 people, or it's not like starting an auto company. I mean, it's just really smart and some capital, and you could do that too, and that's what's going on. And it's just now all of a sudden, the data center play is starting to come into question, or it has been into question for a while. But the only guys that have made money so far are the chip makers, right? The memory chip guys. Everybody else no one else has really made money, right?
No, it's all the chip because they need the compute, right? They need the chips, and the chip guys got them, and now they're selling them at exorbitant prices. They're raping these big companies, but what are they going to do? They got to keep up.
Right.
And the really tricky thing now, we'll keep going with this theme for a few minutes. IBM. Right? International Business Machines. the first computer company, kind of, right? They're big into the quantum business, right? That's the long game they're playing, right? So they kind of like poo-poos this AI, but they got money from the government to work on their quantum. So this guy, I guess he's in his 60s, the CEO of IBM, he's 60 something years old. His thing was let's be very transparent to the market always. Like no surprises, no gaffes, no, hey, we did this and that was wrong. And he came out on Tuesday and said, oh, yeah, by the way, because it was a pre-earnings announcement. They didn't release earnings. That's in a couple of weeks. But he came out and said, oh, by the way, this AI thing is really expensive. And all of our customers are saying they have to catch up on the AI stuff. And they didn't buy any of our things. Basically, that's what he said. And the market, Mr. Market said, what? Like, what are you talking about? 25% drop in IBM. I mean, that's like ridiculous. I mean, it's a record drop for them on any day. You know, Great Depression, they were around as a typewriter company, I think. But, the financial crisis, nothing like this has ever happened to them. And I'm kind of like watching. So basically what that is that software trade thing again, right? Like, because they sell mainframes to big companies. That's IBM's game, right? So
right.
and it's a lot of like the big financial markets guys. So insurance, banks. So basically what's going on is, Jamie Dimon is talking to the head guys at IBM, the head guys, and saying, yeah, we don't have any money today. We're doing this AI thing, but at some point probably we'll have some, but that doesn't do IBM any good. So now, how Eric put up that spaghetti chart where like a 20-legged octopus where all things are tied in. This is tied in again, like this is they're not doing the AI. So the world, I guess, panics and says they're never going to sell another mainframe, or none of their software is going to work, or, they have a big consulting part of their business. That's all done. I don't know. I don't think so. And it also goes back to this thing will be around, AI or quantum or something, but nobody can tell us with no moat who's going to be the boss of it. You're not the boss of me, right? So everybody's just buying. It says AI, they buy. When it goes down, they sell. And even like SpaceX, right?
Right.
There's a connection
first
there.
of all, they didn't launch their rocket yesterday. That was
the engine didn't work. That's tough.
Right. And a lot of other things aren't working right now.
Yeah, like a major short book has been built up in their recent IPO, like billions. And where is it? Is it? Was it one?
It's at 123.5
Oh,
right now.
Yeah, it was kind of coming back a little
below its IPO price.
Yeah, I know it hit 122 or 121 this morning, but it was kind of coming. I was creeping back, and I was like, oh. So basically, everybody
bailing out.
Yeah, everybody who was long is now down, right? Everybody.
Yeah, and if the book was real, if you really had these sovereign wealth funds that say we want to own this for the next 50 years, this is a great time to get in. You can buy at a discount to what you did a month ago. Let's go.
If you liked it at 135, you'll love it at 115.
Yeah. Maybe a big chunk of their budget has shifted to defense tech and drones. All those, ADIA and Kuwait Investment Authority and Saudi, they have different priorities than they did a month ago.
Yeah, a little bit. But the other thing too, right? Talking about the spaghetti charts and the octopus legs, Verizon came out, the big phone company. They use AI maybe on their customer service calls. They're not AI. They're a phone company, right? With and a TV company, I guess, a little bit. They fired 3,000 people because they think SpaceX with this Starlink is going to crush them. And T-Mobile was quick to sign up with Starlink. So now, at some point that tells me Starlink's going to be selling phones, or you can get a program, not just from T-Mobile, I'm sure. But it's all kind of weaved into each other. which is a little scary, right? Unless you do get the big breath, BREADTH, that people hope for, right? So like if we were talking about earlier with that Goldman report where it seems like the hedge funds and institutional guys are lowering their exposure to AI. If they're going to buy other stuff, energy, consumer staples, those things have gotten beaten up. Eric pointed out earlier this week, we were talking, I've been talking about Conagra. We didn't really buy it, but the dividend was like 10% at one point.
Right.
And they cut that.
Wow.
Yeah, they cut it.
That's going one of two ways. Like when you're yielding 10%, it's like, all right, well, either the stocks will go up or the dividend's going down, and we got our answer this week.
Yeah. And you wonder, same thing, like these grocery stores, my favorite I've been watching for a long time, but still haven't bought it is Campbell Soup. Same thing, like their dividend's like 8. And it's like, dang, people don't buy soup anymore. And they keep blaming the Ozempic, the GLP-1 diets. Like, but these guys can shift, right? I mean, I think even people taking these shots or pills now, they eat something, right? They got to eat. But these guys can, change their product, go to like less sodium, less sugar, less. And, the PEs are still insane. They still crank out money,
right?
But nobody wants them. They're not sexy.
So I'd say quite a disturbing story came out. I think we saw this a couple of days ago, right? Where I think it was Meta, right? Was they found out that when they did their big layoffs, they were using AI, right? They're using AI programs to basically pick out all of the people they wanted to fire, people who have been sick, people who basically hit them up on their insurance.
Well, this is what they claim. So let's,
yes, okay, alleged,
alleged, right? But think about that. Like, who? If this is one kernel of this is true, like, what kind of people? Like this is like the movies. Like, does Zuckerberg sit there like petting a cat? Like that guy, Joe Shit the Rag Man over there in Carmel, California. He had that surgery, right? And it was like 22 grand. And he was on the fence of not performing well. And his ass.
Well, if you remember the great movie Head Office with Eddie Albert, and it was the mid '80s great movie. There's a scene in there where Eddie Albert's the CEO, and he's basically going through every guy that hasn't paid their phone bill, and he's sitting there in the boardroom, fire his ass or get that money from him. That's kind of like that. Richard, to your point, it's like, when we see crazy things like that. You remember we did the thing where JP Morgan was basically, they were clobbering the inmates. Like, senior people sit in a room and say, yes, let's do that. That's a good idea.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean,
go with that.
This thing, I mean, they like, that's why I liken it to like the steroid crisis back in the day. Like, I didn't know what it was that the doctor prescribed me. I'm like, dude, you are like, pick any of them, the baseball guys, the football guys, whatever. Like, you are a professional athlete. Like, if I come up to you and say, hey, bro, would you like a Kit Kat? I have a Kit Kat here. You might punch me, right? You might like kill me. Like, so maybe they didn't know the intricacies of the deal, but they were like, yeah, doc, make me stronger. Have a nice day, right? So
when they gain 10 pounds of muscle,
I had no idea.
2 months after working out every single day for the last 10 years.
I had no idea this happened. So when you go to this Meta thing this week, how does that get discovered? Like, how does that lawsuit happen? So like somebody's, right? It wasn't one person. It's a group. It's a class action suit. Like, they were like, dude, did you go to the doctor a lot? Yeah, so did I. Did you get fired? Yes, I did. So then some lawyer goes, hold up. Like, let's look at this. When did you go to the doctor? What kind of surgeries did you have? There's a common theme here. Oh my God, we got to get them. So
Yeah.
I got to believe they went to them and said, you got to pay, old Zuck. You got to pay. And he was like, oh, kill yourselves. Right? Like, no way, dude. We didn't do this. And the fact
But
that this could even come up is like, whoa, whoa.
even the benign interpretation of what happened here. So they're saying they were measuring the employees' productivity
Mm-hmm.
by hours worked and number of AI tokens they were using. And so it goes back to what's the formula for how they're measuring who's a good employee and how productivity is being created. And then it's what's the model. And if you have a garbage, if it's just, you're an HR executive and the order comes down, you have to find a new way to measure employees' productivity and use AI to do it. Then it takes all the nuance out of the equation of who is actually creating value. And then you encourage people they just want me to bang out as many emails as possible
Right.
and create as many AI tokens as possible. It gets into this dystopian Black Mirror type future
I
that
have a I
people are
have a cat.
legitimately
I
worried
have a
about.
cat. His I have a cat. His name is Jim. Send. I have a dog. His Jim. Send. Like look, boss, look, I'm using all the tokens up. Don't
Right.
fire me.
You're having a problem with your TPS reports today, and just
Well, it reminds you a lot of, you remember when, in fact, it's exactly this, right? The old days when Joe Stalin was running the Soviet Union, or later when Mao's running, think about the Great Leap Forward in the 50s from China,
yeah,
when it was discovered, you know what? Everybody build basically a steel plant in their backyard, and you guys better produce. And so what everybody ended up doing was melting down all of their farm equipment. Anything with metal, they were melting it down. And obviously that was not good steel. And then no one had any farming implements for food. And then they had the Great Famine. I mean, this is literally that. It's just like, shit, I gotta do 1,000 of these. All right. Like Richie said, cat, dog. It's like,
And
oh,
now I'll go out on my prediction market limb. I think you will see almost no one now ever again say that AI is going to cost jobs, because they had a young man who went into the old Anthropic building in San Francisco following an employee, and he handed out a little note that said, I am going to kill this person. And they didn't release who the name was, but I think it was the top guy. So now he's in the building and he's going to kill that guy because he runs AI or whatever.
right.
Like, so you'll never see that again. I don't think,
from the
unless
people
they're crazy.
in the industry
Yeah, yeah.
that promote.
So
Yeah, yeah.
it'll happen. It'll happen, but they'll say, like, they won't say it's because of AI, because
That explains the Anthropic commercials we talked about last week. I saw them during the World Cup again. Where
yeah.
it's, I mean, a minute-long commercial in the semifinals of the World Cup. It may not be the Super Bowl, but it probably cost a pretty penny.
It's probably more. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
more.
it say? Did it say Big Brother is your friend?
Yes, that's essentially what it says. AI is your friend. Here's how we're going to work together. It's just,
So also these guys, they're running around trying to figure out how it's all going to play out, but you still have, like, people really scared. Right now, you've scared everybody. So I don't know if it made international news, Kevin, but it definitely made national news. About 10 miles from here, from where I'm sitting right now, on Tuesday night, they had a 12-hour common council meeting. 12 hours. Went from 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. They shoot everybody out of the room. The common council voted 5-1 against a new data center going in.
mhm.
So that's going on everywhere now.
I
So,
didn't see that in Florida. I saw it about New York, where
yeah,
they're
no, she
freezing.
just banned it.
Yeah, the governor. Yeah, the
Yeah,
governor.
Yeah.
but in Florida, they keep talking about how they will be friendly to the data center people, but they have to pay for everything. So DeSantis, the governor, has said, and I just saw a commercial for the guy who wants to, because DeSantis is done, term limits. So I saw the guy who wants to be governor, had a commercial, and he was quick to say, "We will protect you from the data centers." He didn't say we're banning data centers. He said they'll pay for it, right? They'll because
So,
one of the biggest guys, it is now the biggest utility in the country is called Next Era Energy, which is the old Florida Power and Light, because they just bought, and they're based 20 miles from me the other way. They just bought Dominion Energy in Virginia. So,
Mhm.
like, they
That's
are
huge.
massive. It was like a $74 billion deal. FP&L is huge. They're everywhere. And they're the ones that have been signing up with everybody. Like Elon wanted something, and Google wanted something, and somehow NextEra, they're not just in Florida, right? They were like, "Oh yeah, we got that space in Alabama. Yeah, we'll build you that. You're good. We're good."
What was the
so it
big
seems like
deal? You remember the
the
big deal
obvious.
in Louisiana? It was Meta was building this gigantic,
Yeah,
and Blue Owl, the private credit fund, was heavily involved in raising putting in equity and also raising like that was a huge multi-billion-dollar deal, right? So what happens with that? What happens when?
they gave the teachers $50,000
Oh,
bonus,
that's right. That's yes.
50 grand. That was more than a lot of them were making,
Right.
like in a salary. Here, you're not going to cry about this, right? We're going to put this by your school. Like that was the big complaint here the other night was that's what they kept saying. Like it was going to be near an elementary school or something, and it was going to like taint the water or make
It
noise.
sounds like pedophiles.
So it
Keep them
seems pretty
away.
clear. Like we can say, I think with high conviction, that the impact on power prices, for example, like these build outs cannot keep going on and pushing up power prices. Just
Mhm.
politically, it's untenable. So they're going to have to generate their own power, and the way that they've all been talking about squaring this circle is they're going to have these small modular nuclear reactors. So, size of a shipping container, these new generation nuclear reactors can power these gigantic data farms and not even be connected to the local grid. And
Right.
so no impact on the local power price. But and that's been a hot trade at times over recent years. That's gotten absolutely decimated at the same time as these chips, as the Momo chip stocks trade
Mhm.
that's gotten wiped out. But it would seem to me if someone thinks, look, this AI future is happening. It needs big data centers. They're not going to be able to tap into the local grid. Therefore, this seems like a trade that you know I I I, I don't want to be put in the same position as that YouTube, the Korean YouTuber who got stabbed. But
Careful. What you say.
take a look at all these nuclear stocks, and there's ETFs, so you don't have to take the single stock risk. But here's the VanEck uranium and nuclear ETF is down about 40% over the last couple of months.
Well, if
So
you're going to use one of those, let's say you're gonna these compact nuclear plants. How
yeah.
do you how does that work with regards to where you put it and what local government or state government's going to allow you to put it there? Like how does that work?
Well, in everything I've read about it is that the type of nuclear that they create doesn't have the risks of the previous generation of nuclear. So you don't have meltdown risk, and these stuff can't produce weapons grade uranium. So
How, how do they manage to make it meltdown proof or
it's just a different way of generating the energy. Beyond that,
But I think it's
you're
expensive.
and there are tests and approvals, and this stuff has been going on for years. It's in the last was a last week or two, there were some new final approvals given by the regulatory agencies. So this again on a 1 week or 1 month basis, nothing's going to happen. But if we're talking 2 3 years, it could be that you have that tipping point where suddenly these shipping container size nuclear reactors are being produced and delivered, and it gets back again to what we talked about the other week on I've never had less conviction on the short term versus having conviction over the long term as I do right now. It's getting to that future of AI and robotics and massive increases in productivity seems like okay, I can see it, but the road to get there, good Lord, it's going to be a rough road to travel.
Now I haven't followed it closely since I saw the initial statement about it. But talk about a moat. One of SpaceX's businesses, right? I don't know how long it's going to take. That's what I don't know if you guys have seen. But one of Elon's ideas is on one of these rocket ships goes up a data center.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And everything is cool because it gets heated by the sun. And it doesn't cost anybody's utility bill. There's no damage or not damage in your water. And if that's true, then he'll just have all of them. And that will be the moat. And that'll be the day I buy the stock because that is a moat. But I don't know if that's feasible. And I don't know how long it takes.
The
I haven't seen
analysis
it
I've
for a
seen on
while.
that is that it's not that it's cheaper, but it avoids all of these regulatory issues and
Right.
Right.
all of
I'm
the
spending up a rocket.
bottleneck issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's more expensive data, but you can do it. It's there. There's no uncertainty.
Right.
Yeah, I've read stuff about that, and there were people, NASA type people who called it into question. Can you actually do that? Because you need it to be. I guess it has to be very very highly coordinated as far as the satellites that are up and their orbit space and crashing into each other, being hit by small meteor showers and stuff like that. So I think
Does
that's a
the
challenge, but who knows?
do they have to like send the repairman up in the fast
Yes,
ship?
yes. Um,
Unit number 4 is down. All right, we'll be there in 3 weeks, bro.
the guy like a janitor type.
Yeah, in a
Bru-
rocket suit, in a spacesuit.
Bruce Willis
So,
is on it.
so to shift gears a little bit, um, we were talking, Kevin, before we were talking about China. So
Yeah.
what's the news out of China, which could be good news for us?
It could be just to like give a brief summary of where we are and why we keep talking about China is that China's economy has been slowing quite a bit, and they officially are acknowledging this. So the official economic statistics, which nobody believes are as accurate, let's say, as statistics that you would get released from other countries, have been showing a pretty material slowdown in a lot of different parts of the economy. So, fixed asset investment, which is one of the key components of GDP growth or decline, was down 5%, 5.7%, I think, in the first half of the year from the previous year. Consumer spending is only up 1%. And that had been growing very, very strongly in previous because you go from being a poor to a middle income country, you see massive increases in consumer spending. Everything is slowing down. The only stuff that is still growing at a decent pace is the like really advanced so AI, robotics, that stuff is growing there. The what else? Exports are growing, which is problematic because it's growing and the U.S. and Europe and their other big export or the customers for their exports are getting very, very uncomfortable with the fact that more and more production is happening in China and less in their country. And I can't
Didn't
remember.
Kevin, let's interrupt you for a second. It's in Germany. Didn't VW just come out
Yes,
and lay
yeah.
off?
They announced that they're going to close 5 factories in Germany over I think the next 4 years and lay off 100,000 employees, which that would be, I mean, comparing the size of the economy, that's like laying off 450,000 employees for an American company. It's massive. And one of the key reasons is because of the China has turned from being a consumer of German products, robotics, or sorry, not robotics, machine tools and other and cars and advanced goods, and now China is a competitor, and in many cases producing better quality products than the German comparable product. And so it's the point is that the one bright spot of China's economy, exports, is under political threat. And so the reason we think this is worth following very closely is because the China has been slowing, and when this has happened over the last decade, because China is navigating this rough transition of a period they had massive investment from, call it 1997 to 2017, in new factories, in apartment buildings, in office buildings, in trains, in airports, everything. Massive investment. They
Cities that no one lives
overinvested.
in.
Cities that nobody lives in. So they had overinvestment, and now they're dealing with the hangover from that. And that started about a decade ago. And when the economy had slowed down in response to the normal period of absorbing this overcapacity that they built, the government has tried to kind of clamp things down and reduce the overinvestment. But every time it started to threaten economic growth, the government caved. They increased liquidity into the market. They slashed interest rates. They slashed reserve requirement rates for the banking system. Just basically, they're terrified of slowing growth that will potentially lead to political uncertainty.
Right.
That's been the pattern over the last decade. But this time, for the first time, while the slowdown is probably even more severe than it's been at any time in the last decade, except for COVID, which obviously COVID gets a bit of a pass. The government is holding firm. They are not increasing liquidity in the market. They're not increasing lending. And the leader, Xi Jinping, has made it very clear over the last couple of years that he doesn't want to use that old playbook again,
Is
because
that because it raises so much speculation, like real estate speculation? Like
that
he's seen
that's
the
part of it.
movie and he sees what happens, right? So he's
That's part of it. That's the benign interpretation. There's also many people who are experts on following China think that he just has a real aversion to the Western style economy where consumer spending is the leader. He really wants China to be this industrial powerhouse. And from a political point of view, it's been from a geopolitical international relations, military strength. If his goal is for China to be the dominant world power, it's been a pretty good strategy so far. But then, so circling back to why is this important? If the regime caves now and says, you know what, we really do need to increase liquidity. We cannot navigate this restructuring of the economy through means that do not include a massive increase in liquidity, then obviously that has a spillover for all these markets we're talking about. And so far, they've held fire. And so that's what we keep watching. I'm I'm loath to make a prediction about if they're going to reverse course. And certainly the timing is who the hell knows. But it's important to be aware, at least for now, that China is slowing. It's slowing dramatically, and the government is trying to do anything but increase liquidity and lower interest rates. If and when they do cave on that, then that's going to be something we're definitely going to be talking about if it happens. So
there's something that I saw. I do this market summary every Monday morning. And one thing that I saw 2 weeks ago when the Fed released the minutes of the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee a meeting that they had in June, they came out with the minutes. And one of the things that was said, I'm going to quote this: the majority of participants highlighted the possibility that after several years of inflation above 2%, continued elevated inflation rates could begin to affect inflation expectations and wage and price setting decisions. Now, that's scary stuff, because that is that's the sum of all fears for central bankers, is that inflation takes hold, it gets into the psyche. I'm going to buy this now because it's going to be higher tomorrow. I need a raise. I mean, it becomes this wage price spiral that once it really sets in, it is extremely difficult to get rid of. And the only real way is like the Fed has got all kinds of crazy, stuff that I don't think they should have to basically spur aggregate demand when there's weakness. But they only really have one blunt force tool to use to kill inflation, and that is to raise rates substantially and basically create a recession and to break that aggregate demand and break the cycle. And when War spoke last week again, he said we have none of us have any tolerance for inflation at these levels or elevated inflation that stays for a while. So you have the Fed kind of moving in the opposite direction. So and I think that people have not. I mean, right now it seems like the 2-year Treasury, the front end of the yield curve, the Treasury curve, that really responds to the Fed more because that's the Fed more is in control of those short-term rates. It's only been moving when oil moves. When oil goes up high, then they think the Fed is going to be in, and then when oil drops, the trade is that okay, the Fed's going to hold off and they're not going to raise at the end of this month or in September. But what War said at that did his Humphrey Hawkins testimony to the Senate and then the House is he was pretty clear that he has no tolerance for this, and the Fed doesn't have tolerance for it either. The rest of the body. So I think in my mind that we are under. We're not estimating a high enough probability that the Fed is going to go 2 or maybe even 3 times from now till early next year. And would that take out enough liquidity to basically counteract Chinese liquidity that maybe their central bank is going in the other direction? And then you got to figure if we're going in opposite directions, well, that's going to smash the yuan, right? The Chinese currency. So we could have the 2 biggest economies on the planet going completely in opposite directions with regards to monetary policy, which, could be very interesting to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, forget, it was Zheng, Jieng, I think. Jie was the head of China when Bush Jr. was president. And that was obviously 20 something years ago. And I think it was in Bush's book, or there was a quote, and they had like a nice powwow at the White House, say, yeah, we're friends, all this shit. And Bush asked him, what keeps you up at night? To the Chinese guy. This is 20 something years ago, right? He goes, yeah, what keeps me up at night is how to create 25 million jobs a year in my country. Right? So he said that then. I know they've put the skids on having kids for a while there. Now they're trying to recharge that. But it's got to be the same kind of thing, right? Like a lot of these kids in China are like unemployed, disillusioned, what have you. So they're not going to get that they're not going to get that back, those jobs created and all that stuff, by just hanging out and having no liquidity. They got to do something. I mean, I'm not talking like there's going to be a revolution, but like if everybody's grumpy, I also think they went on this it's kind of like on the down low. Like there's like a big buy China only thing going on over there, right? So like that could be impacting the Germans, obviously us, obviously imports, right? Like our economy doesn't need in China your products because we have everything here, and we will send it out as our exports grow. We will continue to send exports out, but there could be like a real disillusionment that we don't realize, and Xi knows, right? He gets reports every day, but I think Kevin is right in the sense that there's something that's going to break soon. sooner than we think.
And they stopped reporting youth unemployment statistics a few years ago
Okay.
because it
Of
was so
course.
bad.
Of course.
And every anecdotal evidence is that it's really bad. Like the new college graduate unemployment is like beyond what it was in the U.S. in 2009.
Right.
2008.
And
It's really bad.
keep in mind, right? Like they still do those. I don't know how they do it, but they still have those stats on math and reading per country. Like the U.S. is shit, right? Like the U.S. is like in the middle of the pack for all the money we spend on education and all that stuff. China is always in like the top five, right? Of both math, reading, doesn't matter. So you're talking about smart kids who work really hard at doing their thing and they can't get a job. That's
They've
probably
done what they were told to do. It's
Yeah.
one thing you're like, yeah, I got a degree in
yeah. I didn't go to
poetry,
the
so
keg
Goldman
party on
Sachs should give me
Saturdays.
right. Yeah.
In 2008, during the global financial crisis, um, a lot of the kids that came from the countryside, millions and millions of them that then had their manufacturing jobs in the Guangdong province, and when China was really rolling and building, and a lot of the kids would go home. They'd get on the train and go home to the countryside where their parents were and where their extended family was. And they were like, and they were the engine for growth. Like they made their money and they sent a lot of it home. And it basically, well, I remember in 2008, there was a story how the kids were going home, like they were going back for Golden Week, but they were going back with their refrigerator and they're going back with their stuff, meaning they're going back to the countryside because there's nothing over here right now. And that is when the Chinese went full bore, let's build 15 cities and nobody live,
Yeah.
just to put people to work.
Yeah.
Because the Communist Party's legitimacy is about how much they've improved everybody's lives and how much, and created jobs and wealth and moved the country forward. And the second that they lose that, which is I think they saw in '08 or '09, was like the second they lose that, they're in trouble. And I remember when the Tiananmen Square massacre happened. And if you remember, those were students. Those are basically the elite that were protesting. And if you remember, they went when the army came in. Those were kids from the countryside who couldn't stand those elites, right? So they had no problem shooting them. Well, the next time maybe it ain't going to be a bunch of elites. It's going to be a bunch of, it's going to be normal everyday people. And I don't think they're going to be able to do that again. Like there could be social unrest that like you said, what keeps you up at night? Well, that's what keeps them up at night. So I think, Kevin, you're right. I think that they have to, if they're not meeting that obligation of the legitimacy of moving everything consistently forward, they're going to have to break and they're going to have to provide the liquidity, I think.
And just to put the bow on that, why is that important? Because every time they've done that before, that liquidity has lifted a lot of markets besides just China. So it's liquidity is fungible. It'll go to all over the place. Certainly for the crypto market, it's important for commodities markets. And so that's why it could be this thing that really becomes important everywhere.
Let us hope.
How about prediction markets? So
Let's do it quick.
the teleprompter guy who has been with Trump, apparently Trump, not just a teleprompter guy. He's been with Trump since 2016. This guy has run the prompter for Trump for 10 years. He makes 175 grand a year. This is a good gig. He probably has shitty hours, right? Because Trump doesn't sleep. He's a vampire. So this kid has to probably get up and work the prompter at like 2 a.m. in, whatever country, because I think he travels with him. This man has been sent on unpaid leave due to betting on Kalshi for what the president might say in a speech. They claim he made $100,000. Bro, you make $175,000 a year. The guy obviously loves you. You've been there 10 years. They're taking care of you. You know, there might be some days where there's no speech that you have to be around. You can just hang out and you blow it all for 90 grand. Come on, dude. He should be, put in jail just for stupidity.
Just for being stupid.
Yeah. But to go further in the legal prediction markets, Eric Salzman is our resident soccer expert.
Not anymore.
So now we're all kind of equal again.
I was so close.
What say ye? I bet the tie in the England Argentina game. I can't even believe I lost that. But what do we say on the soccer or the football coming up? Saturday is the third place game here in sunny hot Florida, between France and the Old English. And Sunday, the big one at MetLife, Spain and Argentina. Do we have views? Do we have strong convictions? I have one strong conviction.
All right, what is it?
So when I coached my daughter's 6-year-old co-ed soccer team back in the day, I started on day one before our first game. I could be loud, as you might know. And I said in the huddle right before we went out to the field, if we score 7 goals, can we lose? And a couple of them go, no. And I go, yes, we can, because they can score 8. And they're all looking around. I go, if the other team scores no goals, can we lose? And my daughter goes, no. I'm like, that's right. Now go out there. So it became like our rallying cry. Like every game after that, like these kids would run out, the parents are dying laughing. And like we won the trophy. Like we, that was during the time when everybody got a trophy, but still they were good. They understood defense.
So your coaching method for 6-year-old girls is to turn them into the Detroit bad boy Pistons or the goons, basically. You turn them into the goon squad to win the championship.
Nobody scores on us. Nobody. And so that leads me to, because I also bet Spain against France the other night. And Spain is definitely the team that gives up no goals.
Yeah.
They gave up 1 the other day, but just 1. So I'm going to go
1 in the whole tournament.
Correct.
The whole tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And I think their unbeaten streak in international matches is like 36 now. Like they haven't lost an important match in 36 games. They're just insane. So I'm going to go with them. I know a lot of people have a lot of love for Argentina, and I dig it. And this is kind of like a friendly match, right? Even though they want to kill each other. Like Messi grew up in Spain, basically. I mean, he's born in Argentina, but he went to the soccer school as a little kid in Spain, played for Barcelona, the whole bit. Did you see? This is the craziest thing. There's a picture 18 years ago, 19 years ago, where they were doing some kind of promo for little kids in Spain. They picked 12 babies to take pictures with like the Barcelona team. I think they were promoting like adoption or something. There is a couple of photos. Messi is holding the kid Lemay, the Spanish.
That's right, yeah.
Like, how weird is that? Like, that's nuts. Like he's holding this baby who's like 6 months old, and he himself is like the new young 19-year-old star of Barcelona. And I'm like, wow. And so like all these like great conspiracy theories came. Like he breathed on that boy And that boy got power of soccer as a young.
Well, you laid it out. It's the unstoppable object, Messi in Argentina against the immovable force. Spain only allowing one goal. And
Yeah.
so, for our American viewers, when that happens in the Super Bowl, it's usually the immovable force defense that prevails. So, but I'll be rooting for Argentina. I'll be rooting for a crazy, exciting finish. It's hard to top the Argentina England game for just sheer end of game drama. So if we see a great final rather than the bludgeoning that Spain put on France, that'd be nice.
Well, that
Eric, what about
said,
you?
I'm going to go with the I'm going with the draw because I can't. And now, granted, oh God, I remember the last World Cup. I was in Texas because my son was graduating college, and I had conviction on the draw, France and Argentina, and I think the odds were pretty good. And I ran to my DraftKings to make my bet, and then discovered because I was in Texas at the time, I couldn't make the bet because I was in a state that did not allow online gambling. And I missed that. I was going to go big, and we drew. And I think Richie, it was a pretty good it was a pretty good payout.
Yeah.
But this time I'm in Maryland where I can use my DraftKings. I'm definitely, I just feel that this is going more than 90 minutes. I think this is going to be the full 120. Hopefully not kicks end it, but I can't figure out who's going to win this game. I think it's going to be a fantastic game though.
Yeah. It's been great. Like this
Oh,
tournament has been
fantastic.
really good.
Yeah.
And I can't get my arms around like there's going to be some people that care about this third place game, but you can't really bet that because
No.
you don't know if anybody's going to play. Like who's going to?
You're devastated you lost.
Yeah, who cares about who
Hot,
came
you want to
third?
go home, and instead you got to stay for a few more days to play a meaningless game. I still don't know why they play that game. I mean,
Yeah, I
obviously
know.
it must be money.
You know the NCAA March Madness. They used to play that game.
Right.
They
Nobody.
and they said, yeah, no, not worth it. Nobody cares. And it's also not going to be like the greatest of playing conditions.
Right.
It is going to be in North Miami. They call it Miami Gardens, I guess.
Hmm.
It's really Fort Lauderdale, where the Hard Rock Stadium is. And
What's
it will be like on the field, that field will be like 120, maybe 130 with the heat index. It's
They just kick the ball back and forth for 90
yeah,
minutes, and then that'll be the end of that game
yeah.
forever. All right,
what's
boys. Well,
what's the
good
weather
stuff.
forecast?
Enjoy the game this weekend, and we'll see you next week.